You kicked out a customer yesterday? That was the owner of the entire company." The manager froze. Silence filled the room, and then the door opened again. She walked in. "Oh, hi. Looks like we didn't get a proper introduction yesterday." But what happened next would shock even those who thought they'd seen it all. Let's start from the very beginning. Liza Harris stepped into the luxurious Elara boutique with a light smile. She had always loved this place. The bright, spacious halls filled with soft notes of classical music, the perfectly arranged displays, the welcoming sales associates. This was a high-end boutique, and everything about it screamed status. She walked slowly along the racks, admiring the outfits: sleek silk dresses, sparkling accessories, shoes made for the runway. She wasn't in a hurry. She loved soaking in the atmosphere of an upscale store, appreciating its aesthetic. But something felt off. Liza sensed it almost immediately. The stares. It was one thing for sales associates to watch customers with professional attentiveness. It was another to be scrutinized with a kind of wary assessment, as if questioning why she was here and whether she had walked through the wrong door. She stopped at a rack of evening gowns, reaching for an emerald dress, when a dry, cold voice spoke behind her. "I'm sorry, but I'm afraid we don't have anything that suits your needs." Liza froze, turned around. Standing before her was a tall man in a perfectly pressed suit. The manager. White skin, light hair, a controlled expression, but his gaze held something more than politeness. Condensation. "Excuse me?" Liza's voice remained even, but her posture straightened. "I'm saying," the man repeated, pausing slightly as if savoring his words, "we don't carry merchandise for your type." His eyes swept over her, taking in the tailored but understated dark jeans, the elegant black top, the modestly refined heels. All of it was expensive, yet he wasn't seeing the clothes. He was seeing her. Liza inhaled slowly. "And what exactly do you mean by my type?" The manager feigned ignorance, smiled professionally, but coldly. "I just think you might find something more affordable at another store." Liza heard the boutique go still. One of the saleswomen momentarily stopped arranging accessories. Another subtly watched the scene unfold, as if sensing that something uncomfortable was about to happen. A familiar anger sparked in Liza's chest. She had encountered this before. "Let's say I want to shop right here." Her voice remained soft, but there was already steel in it. The manager sighed, crossing his arms as if preparing to explain something obvious. "Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." And again, silence. Liza met his gaze. No regret. No hesitation. This was normal for him. She held his stare for a few more seconds, then suddenly, she smiled. Not the kind of smile that showed joy, the kind of smile that belonged to someone who already knew exactly how this was going to end. Liza stepped out of the boutique with measured strides, though inside she was boiling. She didn't slam the door, didn't throw a furious glance over her shoulder, didn't cause a scene. That would have been too easy. The sun was already beginning to dip toward the horizon, casting a soft golden light over the streets of Manhattan, painting the glass facades of buildings in warm hues. People passed by, too absorbed in their own lives to notice her. No one knew that just moments ago, inside that boutique, she had been told, straight to her face, that she didn't belong there. She stopped in front of the display window and looked at her reflection. Perfectly styled hair, dark jeans, an elegant top, shoes that cost more than that manager's monthly salary. But he hadn't seen any of that. All he saw was the color of her skin, and decided she shouldn't be there. Anger crept through her veins, slow and steady, but it didn't erupt into a fiery rage. Instead, everything inside her turned ice cold. She slid a hand into her pocket, pulled out her phone, and dialed a number. "Diane?" Her voice was steady, almost calm. Her assistant's upbeat voice answered immediately. "Liza? Everything okay?" Liza closed her eyes for a brief moment, inhaling deeply. "Find me everything you can on the manager of the Alara boutique downtown. Name, surname, how long he's worked there, any complaints against him. I want his contacts, connections, previous employers, everything." A short pause on the other end of the line. "Did something happen?" Liza glanced over her shoulder at the boutique doors. Through the glass, she could still see the manager. He was talking to one of the saleswomen, laughing. He had already forgotten about her. "He told me to leave," she said. Diane was silent for exactly 1 second before replying, "I'll handle it." Liza ended the call and took another deep breath. 10 years ago, she would have just walked away. Maybe complained to friends, posted a tweet that would rack up hundreds of likes and comments filled with outrage. But now, she wasn't just a customer anymore. She owned this chain of stores, and she was about to remind them of that. The boutique was filled with tense silence. Employees stood gathered in the center of the showroom, glass displays shimmering with jewelry, the air lightly scented with expensive perfume. Everything looked the same as always, yet it felt different. Something unseen vibrated in the atmosphere, making everyone uneasy. The manager stood before the staff, arms crossed, his expression tinged with mild irritation. "What's this urgent meeting about? We have work to do." His voice carried a note of displeasure. "Relax, Nick," one of the saleswomen whispered. "It looks serious." He scoffed. Serious? It was just another normal day, another normal shift. Sure, there had been some scene yesterday with that woman, but so what? Who even was she? The boutique doors opened. A group of people entered. Strong, confident strides, expensive suits, expressions that sent a chill down the spine. There were 5 of them, men and women holding tablets, their gazes sharp and unforgiving. Leading the group was an older man with silver hair, his posture radiating authority, but all of that faded into the background when she walked in behind them. Liza, a confident stride, a flawless navy blue suit, and a gaze free of any hesitation. The manager blinked, as if doubting his own eyes. "What?" He took a step forward, his voice not as steady as he wanted it to be. "What's going on here?" The older man, the one leading the group, crossed his arms and looked directly at him. "Yesterday, you removed a customer from the boutique," he said evenly. "Yeah, and?" The manager scoffed, but suddenly his mouth felt dry. "That was the owner of the entire Alara brand." The air thickened. Someone among the staff gasped. One of the saleswomen hunched her shoulders. The cashier swallowed nervously. The manager froze. "What?" His voice wavered. "Allow me to introduce myself." Liza's voice rang out. She stepped forward, and now all eyes were on her. She looked at him with a faint smile, the same one she wore yesterday when he told her to leave. "Liza Harris, CEO of Alara Boutiques." The manager felt his knees go weak. But... His eyes darted between her and the group behind her. This must be a joke, a mistake. A mistake? Liza tilted her head as if considering his words. "Yes, perhaps. The mistake was that you were ever here in the first place." He stilled. The silence was so dense it felt as if the air itself had grown heavier. Liza turned to the older man and gave a slight nod. "Terminate him immediately," she said calmly. "And initiate an internal audit across all locations. I want reports on every case of discrimination within Alara over the past 3 years. We are building a brand that is open to everyone, not a playground for elitist snobs." The manager's mouth opened as if to protest, but no words came out. She wasn't looking at him anymore. To her, he no longer existed. He wasn't a problem. He was a mistake, one that had just been corrected. The manager stood as if paralyzed. His face had gone pale. His lips trembled slightly, but he tried to keep his composure. "Listen." His voice came out quieter than he intended. He cleared his throat and tried again. "This is just some kind of misunderstanding." Liza slowly turned her head toward him, her gaze remaining serenely cold. "A misunderstanding?" she repeated, as if tasting the word. "Yes." He forced a weak smile. "You see, I was simply trying to uphold the boutique's standards and—" "Ah, standards." Liza nodded. "Interesting word. And what standards, in your opinion, did I fail to meet?" The manager blinked, his thoughts scrambling for an escape. I didn't mean to offend you." Liza took a step closer. "Of course you didn't. People like you never mean to offend. They just think they have the right to decide who is worthy and who isn't." He swallowed hard. "Look, I was just doing my job." "And that's exactly why you just lost it," the older man standing next to Liza said evenly. The manager turned to him with desperate hope. But I've worked here for 6 years. I'm the best manager in the company. My numbers—" "No longer matter," the man said firmly. "You have 10 minutes to collect your things. You can't just—" He looked at Liza, something like a plea flashing in his eyes. She smiled. "I can," she replied calmly. The manager remained standing in complete shock. He tried to speak, but his lips refused to move. Liza turned to the boutique staff, who still stood aside, tensely watching the scene unfold. "I want all of you to remember this moment," she said. Her voice was steady, without malice, just resolute. "This brand was not created for anyone to decide who is worthy of walking through our doors. We are here to offer the best service to every customer. It doesn't matter what color they are, what they wear, or how much money they have. If anyone disagrees with this philosophy—" She paused, scanning their faces. "They can pack their things along with him." No one moved. Liza nodded. "Good." She turned and walked toward the exit. Pausing at the door, she glanced back. The manager stood hunched at the counter, his fingers gripping the lapels of his blazer as if they could save him. "One last piece of advice," Liza said, locking eyes with him. "Next time, before you underestimate someone, think twice." And with that, she left. The next day, news spread across all Elara boutiques. Employees discussed what had happened in corporate chats. Customers voiced their approval, and social media lit up with posts under the hashtag #ElaraForAll. Liza sat in her office with a cup of coffee, watching as her phone filled with notifications. She felt satisfied. But not because she had fired someone, because now her business was exactly what she had always wanted it to be.